Well, UFC 222 is officially in the books. That means it's time to wrap the whole thing up with my man Shaun Al-Shatti here. The post-fight press conference has just concluded. I'm Ariel, Helwani. We're outside the T-Mobile Arena where Saturday night's card just finished. And the big news, of course, Cris Cyborg, once again, she successfully defends her UFC women's featherweight title. She defeats Yana Kunitskaya in the first round. People are talking about that, but I get the sense that they're really talking about Brian Ortega knocking out Frankie Edgar, the first person to ever finish Frankie Edgar. He did it in the first round with a vicious elbow, then followed up with an uppercut that actually lifted Frankie off the mat. An unbelievable performance by T-City. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Sean O'Malley's big win. Whole lot to discuss as far as UFC 222. But let's start with Cris Cyborg. Let's give her her due. She takes this fight on a month's notice. She fights the relatively unknown Yana Kunitskaya, the now former Invicta FC bantamweight champion. And as we said on Friday, it's one thing to main event in the UFC in your debut. It's one thing to main event in the title fight. It's one thing to fight Cyborg, all that and more. It kind of ended up as we expected. However, she had some moments, Yana, didn't she?
I mean, she had a moment where she had her Cyborg's back briefly. But I mean, I feel like that was pretty much what everyone expected, right? Like the fight almost ended in the very first punch. Yeah. Like it was very close. It seemed like, but yeah, it's an overwhelming thing to be thrust into right away, and we kind of knew that beforehand. And even afterwards in the post-fight press conference, Yana admitted that was a little weird, and it was just a weird mental situation for her. It's tough, but I mean, you got to give Cyborg her due. I mean, she can only fight the people they put in front of her, and she puts them away, usually, just like that, in very spectacular fashion.
Yeah, she definitely ate a big punch. Cyborg saying afterwards that she had read that Kunitskaya said she didn't have knockout power, so she wanted her to feel that power. Credit to Kunitskaya for adapting and not going out and maybe prolonging the fight. It was a little survival. It was a little game plan. She didn't do any damage, but she did kind of stall things. Once Cyborg broke free, it was elementary. She finished her ground and pound in the first round. I thought it was a good stoppage. Did you have any issues with it?
No, not at all. Could have come earlier, to be honest.
Really? Okay, so there you go.
Yeah.
So anyhow, so Cyborg wins the fight. Kunitskaya says afterwards, as you just noted, that it was a weird experience and she was very nervous. She also says she's going back down to 135. And again, it seems like Cyborg gets heat for these matchups, but as you just noted, she's only fighting I mean, I'd rather her fight these fights with a belt on the line at 145, a natural weight class, as opposed to the arbitrary 140. It's almost unfair to her at this point because, as we noted on Friday, it's a lose-lose. She was expected to win, and now once again people say she fights a bloated 135er. It's hard to celebrate her when everyone is just always critical of the state of the featherweight division and the opponents that they're offering up to her.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. And I mean, there is no featherweight division, really. We talk about this sort of mythical featherweight division, but it doesn't exist. It's Cyborg. It's Cyborg's division, and whoever wants to come up to fight Cyborg. And now we're sort of at the same spot that we were back in December, where there's not many obvious options other than Amanda Nunez.
Right. Megan Anderson is signed to the UFC. She can fight. She has her own personal reasons. She refuses to talk about them, at least now. But I do hear that things are moving along, and her team is hopeful that she could fight in 2018. But to be quite honest, after seeing tonight what it's like to debut in a main event, a title fight against Cyborg, if you're Megan Anderson, you don't want to debut. I see her tweeting about it, but that would be a massive mistake. Wouldn't you agree?
I would agree. I mean, at this point, how long has it been since she's fought as well? I mean, to come off from
January of last year.
Yeah, to come off from a long layoff like that, along with all of these factors that we've already mentioned of debuting in a title fight against Cyborg like this, I don't think that would be the ideal situation for her, but maybe she wants, that big paycheck. I mean, Yana did make $100K just to do something just to do this tonight. So what can you say?
100K disclosed. I'm told she actually made more. Credit to her, probably made more tonight than she's made in her entire career combined. So that's a nice little consolation prize, and she doesn't appear to be seriously injured as well. Cyborg's not talking about Megan Anderson, though. She's talking about Amanda Nunez. Not that long ago, she was saying, I don't want to fight a fellow Brazilian. But now she's saying, you called me out, I want to fight you. And here's the interesting thing. Dana White showed up at the press conference and said that he actually likes that fight next for Nunez, as opposed to the Raquel Pennington fight, which is currently scheduled to take place May 12th in Rio de Janeiro. They haven't officially announced it, though. Cyborg, though, is saying, I don't know about May. July sounds better to me. How do you see this whole situation playing out?
It seems like that's the fight the UFC wants, is the Nunez fight, regardless of what's going on with Pennington. So I feel like once they've made up their mind, they're gonna try to push for that. If I'm Cyborg, though, you use that as an opportunity, right? Like just like this one. You want me to come in late notice for this? You pay me more. If you want me to come for UFC 224, which at that point would be 3 fights in 5 months, you better make it worth my while. I feel like ultimately the next fight we're gonna get for both of them is Cyborg versus Nunez, just because there isn't another option for Cyborg. It will be interesting to see sort of how what it takes to get Cyborg to accept that fight, though.
So considering the options out there, you like this one best?
I mean, it's tough for Raquel. She's been through a lot over the past year. But I mean, just personally speaking, I would rather see Cyborg Nunez than Nunez Pennington.
And would you like that fight to be at 145 or at a catchweight?
I don't ever want to see Cyborg go down to 140 again, so I would
Okay.
want it at a catchweight.
Do you like Nunez's chances against her at 145?
Not really. I mean, it's a much more competitive fight than anything else. But I ultimately I would pick Cyborg if that's what we mean. Yeah.
Do you feel like there is intrigue in the spectacle of her beating up these women at this juncture? Like there was spectacle in what Tyson did, right? That was intriguing to a certain degree, and it got to a point where he started to fight tougher competition. But he went through like 25 guys before he got to that point. Is this fun for you? Is this intriguing for you? Is this interesting for you, or are you tired of it at this point?
I don't know that I'm tired of it because I mean, again, she can only fight who is available. But I don't know that it's fun either. I mean, this is one the whole week. I mean, even on our preview show we shot on Thursday, it's hard to talk about these fights and give it a sense of, hey, maybe there's some mystery in this and what's going to happen. I don't know. Like the Holly Holm fight was different because that, again, there were paths to victory for Holly, and it ended up being a much more competitive fight than anything we've seen with Cyborg. Amanda Nunes will be interesting. I mean, that will have the similar intrigue of the Holly fight of, hey, there's various ways this could go. Other than that, though, I mean, it's not compelling. I mean, for the most part, like it's interesting to watch Cyborg compete as a world-class athlete and probably the best woman who's ever done this. But I just wish we could find other people to throw her against.
I feel like the MMA community would tolerate it more if there were other non-title featherweight fights happening. So
make an effort. Yeah, make an
an
effort.
investment.
Make an effort to build that division because at this point, it does. How deep are we into this? And it's been a year basically, and they've still had no other real featherweight fights. They're not signing featherweight fighters. They're not looking for featherweight fighters. It's just become this revolving door of find these bantamweights and send them up.
I will maintain, though, as you noted, I'll take this over her fighting at 140 any day. And hey, these 135ers who are fighting up, they're getting paid to fight her. So at least there's some consolation there, as I said. Okay, let's talk about the co-main event because I know you want to talk about this.
Yes.
Brian Ortega finishes Frankie Edgar in the first round, and he does it via strikes. Starts with the elbow, ends with that uppercut. Frankie was out. Not only was he out, it appeared as though he was like lifted off his feet. It was like a cartoon. It was unbelievable to watch. It was stunning for a guy taking this fight on short notice. Just signed a new deal after beating Cub Swanson. He remains undefeated. No one has ever finished Frankie Edgar in his 13-year career. And now here we are. The T-City era has arrived, and he is going to fight Max Holloway. But first, let us celebrate this performance. You were sitting there cage side. You witnessed it firsthand. What did you think when you saw it go down?
Just spectacular, man. Just utterly spectacular. There are not enough superlatives that I have to pile on that. I mean, like you said, he lifted Frankie Edgar off the ground with that uppercut. It was something out of Mortal Kombat 2. It was ridiculous. And the elbow that started it was even more beautiful, man. What the T-City era is here. It's incredible. I mean, we've gone 13 years without Frankie Edgar being stopped in a fight, and for it to finally happen in the first round via strikes, no, I don't feel like anybody was calling that. Going into this, you thought that if Brian Ortega was going to win, he was going to catch some sort of submission in a scramble or something like that. To go out there and outstrike Frankie Edgar so decisively, I am so ridiculously impressed.
Yeah, I believe the odds of that exact scenario playing out were plus 1250, and that just goes to show just how impressive that feat was. Is this a good thing for the UFC? These two young guns, fresh faces, Ortega fighting for a title fight. We've seen Edgar there before, and your heart breaks for him because he had the title fight and he took this fight, and yes, he got paid, but I mean, it just seems like that featherweight title is going to elude him forever. But that being said, there's a lot to like about Ortega, and he just started his own foundation. He's starting a scholarship fund to have kids train jiu-jitsu for free. Is this a good result for the UFC ultimately, business-wise?
ultimately, just because of the way the manner in which it happened, I think absolutely. I mean, Brian Ortega comes out of this feeling like a star.
Yeah.
Like he has that aura now around him, especially after the Cub Swanson one and then this Frankie Edgar back to back. I mean, that's just, again, so spectacular. And now I feel, maybe this is reactive, but I feel like Max Holloway versus Brian Ortega is my most anticipated fight of the year now. And that fight has everything you want. And both of those guys are still in their early to mid 20s.
Yeah.
Like, this is a rivalry that could potentially go, 7-8 years between these guys. I cannot wait for that.
He noted afterwards that he weighed 164 pounds in there, so he added 19 pounds. Do you feel like size could be a factor in a fight against Max Holloway? I mean, Max isn't the smallest featherweight either, but that's a pretty large amount of weight to add in the span of 24 hours.
It's a lot of weight, but like you said, Max is a big guy too. I mean, Max is someone who's talked about going. This tent's gonna collapse on us.
Yes.
Max is someone who's talked about going to lightweight often at this point, and he's still growing into his frame. I mean, I don't know that size is going to be a huge factor in that, but God damn, that's such a good fight.
Yeah, it certainly felt like a factor tonight, especially after he confirmed his weight. So he's down to fight, obviously, for the belt. It's very clear that that's going to happen. Yeah. Holloway hasn't talked. I've tried to talk to him. He doesn't want to do media right now, but he did tweet afterwards UFC 226, which would be that July 7th card headlined by Daniel Cormier versus Stipe Miocic. So obviously that's a great idea. We want to see the fight. Hawaii would be the best, but it doesn't seem like it's going to happen anytime soon. Gun to your head. If that fight goes down in the next few months, who are you picking?
I have no idea.
Come on. No, there's a gun to your head right now.
There isn't. I'm not making that pick yet. I have no idea. That is, I'm just gushing about it, but that is such a fascinating fight. And you're right. UFC Hawaii, really, that would be the perfect, ideal scenario. But if you can throw him on that 226 card and you have Stipe versus DC, and then you have that underneath it, that's a damn good card, man.
Yeah. And the UFC, as we've talked about, they're searching for fresh faces. They're getting one in Brian Ortega. They also got one in Sean O'Malley. So let's talk about Sean O'Malley. What a performance. The Sugar Show rolls on, and it looked great early on. The first round was phenomenal, arguably a 10-8. I don't know. Did any of the judges give it a 10-8?
I think one did give us 10-8.
There you go.
Maybe two.
Andre Sukumtad comes back a little stronger second round. Seems like he has him in a lot of trouble after Sean O'Malley landed a kick that injured his foot. Doesn't capitalize on it, Andre Sukumtad. I mean, it seemed like all he had to do was get him to stand up, and he would win this fight via TKO because Sean O'Malley couldn't stand up. In fact, after the fight, he couldn't even stand to do the post-fight interview. It was one of the more memorable post-fight interviews because he's literally lying on his back talking to Joe Rogan. Yes, and talking about how the medicine he will receive at his post-fight party is going to help him. You know, it was endearing, it was entertaining, but it went to show that maybe Andre Sukumtad let an opportunity slip through his fingers, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you don't want to pile on a fighter when he's down, but that was one of the most puzzling, one of the most poor fight IQs that I've ever seen in a fighter. Maybe not ever, but at least in recent memory, man. Like you said, if Andre Sukumtad just stands up and walks to the other side of the cage and hey, come on. Like, that fight might be over at that point, right? Like, there were portions where Sean O'Malley was just hopping on one leg, and Andre didn't recognize it, or I don't know what, but why take him down there? It makes no sense. You know you're down on the scorecards. It was a baffling decision. But in a way, I almost feel like obviously Sean O'Malley doesn't want to get injured, and so that's not positive. But if he would have knocked out Andre Sukumtad at the end of that first round or submitted him with any of those submissions in the second round, I feel like he almost doesn't get as much shine as he ended up getting just for gritting this out, man. Like, he was fighting basically half a round on one leg, and he won the fight. Like, that's incredible.
Yeah, both guys deserve a lot of credit because the first round for Sukumtad didn't go all that well, and he took a lot of big shots. I know that Sean O'Malley was criticized after his debut, his official UFC debut back in December, the win over Terrion Ware. This time, though, finish or not, he's getting the street cred for, gutting it out. But overall, are you happy with the performance? Are you happy? Because there were a lot of people who thought this may have been a little too soon for him. Absolutely,
but the first round in particular was very impressive. Just the patience and the creativity that Sean O'Malley was displaying as a striker and the fluidity. It's a joy to watch him, sort of compete. Even on the ground, he's launching into like spinning strikes on the ground and he's going from submission to submission, chaining these grappling techniques. It's he's a fun fighter to watch. And again, you don't want to push someone too fast, but he does seem like a very intriguing prospect. And he's a character too, which is something in today's era where Reebok and everything is so dressed down and everybody looks the same. It's nice to just have some people out there who can still, have that personality, have some uniqueness about them. As he's getting carted off, before they're about to do the interview with Joe Rogan, he's like acting like he's smoking a bong, and as he's getting carted off on a stretcher outside of a past press row, he's just acting like he's smoking a joint. He's hilarious, man. Like, I don't know how you could hate that.
And we just got some good news regarding Shaun O'Malley. Dana White announced that the X-rays were negative, and he did not break his foot. We don't know the severity of the foot injury, but good news that he didn't break it. So that was a big win for a lab fighter. Another big win for a lab fighter making her debut, Mackenzie Dern. She defeats Ashley Yoder. She didn't get the finish. It looked like she might have gotten the finish at the very end. Overall, how would you grade her UFC debut, her long-awaited, much-anticipated UFC debut?
I think it was a positive. I think it was a good debut. People need to remember she's only been doing this for 2 years. Like Ashley Yoder, less than 2 years. Yeah. Ashley Yoder's has a lot of fights. Like in her professional record, she only has a few, but like overall, she has a lot of fights. And Mackenzie, you can see it. Her striking is still very much a work in progress. But as soon as the fight hit the ground in that third round, it was just like an explosion. Like you could just see how masterful she is down there and how quickly she was drowning Ashley. It's going to take some time, but I think a fight like tonight was good because it lets people slow down a little bit on what this road for Mackenzie. Yeah. I mean, she even said afterwards she doesn't want this fast push to be fighting top 10 people soon. She needs to figure this out. She needs to sort of build these skills. She's still very early in her development. But it was a positive to be able to come in under this high-pressure situation and beat a veteran like Ashley Yoder. It was a positive.
I'll say this about Mackenzie Dern. For someone who openly talks about not liking to get hit, she certainly rushes in there with reckless abandon and gets hit. And she's tough.
Yeah.
Like she takes punches. She grinds them out. She doesn't quit. She keeps going. She's going for submissions late in fights. I mean, there's no questioning her toughness. Yeah. I just worry if she fights someone who's an above average striker. She runs in like that. She's leaving herself open every time. She really needs to work on just being a little more patient, especially early on, I think.
I agree with you, but I think more so than her striking. I mean, obviously she needs to develop her striking. More so, she needs to really, really work hard on her wrestling and her takedowns. She needs to get sort of this cabinet or catalog of takedowns that she can sort of go through and chain through, sort of in the same vein as a Damian Maia, so she can get her fights consistently to the ground. Because she was struggling throughout those first 2 rounds to get this fight to the ground, and that's ultimately where she wants to be, no matter how good her striking is. So she really needs to work on that and put that in her toolbox. And once she does, she's gonna be in a force to be reckoned with.
Again, good news for the UFC. She wins, and she's one of many young fighters who won on this card. So overall, it feels like a good night. A dubious distinction though for UFC 222, tied the record for the most split decisions ever on one UFC card. There was a stretch of a bunch of them and some very strange calls. And hey, wouldn't you know it? Our old friend Adelaide Byrd resurfaced, and you have to wonder why Nevada is putting her in major league combat sports after what happened in that Triple G Canelo fight. But here she was, and wouldn't you know it, she had some weird scorecards. Now, 2 little factoids that I really loved tonight, I must say. Andrei Arlovski tonight, in defeating Stefan Struve, tied Frank Mir's record for most wins in UFC heavyweight division history. Loved that. What I loved even more was the fact that he landed 4 takedowns tonight. Previously, in his entire UFC heavyweight run, which dates back
long time,
like almost 2 decades now at this point, he only landed 3 combined. He landed 4 tonight. That's pretty damn remarkable. Yeah. I know it wasn't the most exciting fight of all time, but hey, Andrei Arlovski, here he is on a 2-fight winning streak, and Chicago's coming up. He's never fought in Chicago. I love this little story.
Yeah, you got to give credit to the old dog learning new tricks, man. Yeah. I mean, he's 39 years old, and now this is now twice in his career where he's had these sort of run of 4 or 5 losses in a row and rebounded to win multiple fights in a row afterwards. And especially this last one where he lost 5 in a row, he got knocked out in 4 of them, and now to come back and win 2 in a row. Obviously, the Junior Albini fight and tonight's fight wasn't the most exciting fight. No, I feel like it wasn't the most entertaining fight. But just that alone, the fact that he was able to rebound and continue to build upon his skills at this sort of advanced age, Good for him, man.
Yeah.
Good for him. You can't take anything away from that guy.
Big win, and he also survived an eye poke, which looks serious. Stefan Struve getting a stern warning, a serious warning, a hard warning, but not a point taken away. Speaking, by the way, of some controversy, just want to ask you about the Hector Lombard-CB Dollaway fight. CB Dollaway wins via DQ because at the end of the first round, Hector Lombard appeared to knock him down due to 2 punches that were thrown and landed after the horn had sounded. The referee a little late to get in there, did yell, time, but didn't necessarily jump in there. Lombard very upset afterwards, saying, I was just going and waiting for him to stop me. I'm a fighter, I'm in motion. Dollaway carded out. No real update on his condition, but did you have any issues with the call, making this a DQ win for CB Dollaway?
It's a weird situation, and there's such murkiness with the rules today that you almost never. Once those situations happen, it's always everybody turning to everybody else like, how should this work? What should we do here? I didn't like ultimately that it was a disqualification. I would have preferred a no contest because, like you said and like Hector said, ultimately it's up to the referee to stop the round, and the referee was late in that instance. And also, I mean, it seemed like it was very much a instinctual bang type of thing where CB Dollaway kicked Hector and he was countering right off of that. And it was just a half a second afterwards. So it's hard to really say what was going on in his head and try to put intent in there and intentions. But I would have, if you're asking me what I would have preferred it was a no contest.
All right. Caitlin Vieira with a impressive win over Kat Zingano. Zingano's first fight since UFC 200. Afterwards, Vieira adamant that she wants a title shot. Also noted that she injured her ribs 10 days ago and seemed a little dicey as to whether or not she'd be able to fight, but looked very good once again. And that's 2 straight victories over 2 contenders in Sarah McMahon and Kat Zingano. Zach Otto unfortunately ended the career of Mike Pyle with a first-round TKO. A very nice moment for Zach Otto, who, on top of that, earned his black belt tonight, which was interesting. But Mike Pyle says goodbye after 20 years in the sport and doesn't get that storybook ending. John Dotson wins the last fight on his current UFC contract. He defeats Pedro Munoz in another split decision victory. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we say goodnight tonight?
Oh, my goodness. Alexander Hernandez. What can you say about this kid? Just coming out of nowhere, accepting a fight on a week's notice, basically. Not even knowing the opponent when he accepts it. Just, do you want to fight on UFC 222? Yes, I do. Who am I fighting? And then comes in here and knocks out a legitimate top 15 lightweight in the world in spectacular fashion. Yeah. My goodness, man. And not only that, cuts a pretty good promo. Like, he was brimming with confidence, and you could tell. That's instantly a name to watch in the lightweight division, which is already so stacked. That is such a great division, and it's very cool where we continue to find these young guys to come in.
He was super impressive in the cage in just 42 seconds. Also out of the cage, as you noted. He also noted that 3 months ago he was working in the mortgage business and decided to, as he put it, shit or get off the pot and go, full steam ahead with his MMA career and just try to do this professionally. And now here he is 3 months later, 1-0 in the UFC, and just knocked out, a legit top 10 guy in Beneil Dariush. A vicious knockout, an unbelievable knockout, and he is super confident. Also worth noting, Cody Stamann with a very impressive win, I thought, over Brian Caraway as well. So all in all, a card that was somewhat maligned, I thought was entertaining. Despite the weird split decisions, some pretty solid performances all around. And the big news, I think, for the UFC is some young, fresh faces emerging here tonight, and that's always a positive, I think, for the company. Worth noting as well that the UFC paid a beautiful tribute to the late Bruce Connell, who we talked about on Friday's preview show. I thought it was really nicely done, and it was very emotional, and if you watched it, you saw just how much he meant to the crew. And Joe Rogan had as I said, a beautiful tribute, but even talked about him live on camera, and he got very emotional. So I thought that the UFC just did a fantastic job with that. And also worth noting that on Friday's Bellator card, Mike Goldberg, a longtime friend of Bruce Connell's, also paid tribute to him. So kudos to both Bellator and the UFC tonight for doing that. One of the pioneers of MMA broadcasting. I thought that was a really nice note on their part. All right, well, we are out of time. We are done. We appreciate you watching our coverage of UFC 222 all week from Las Vegas. Thank you so much. It was fun, Shaun. Yeah. Great job. We'll be back on Monday for the MMA Hour. UFC taking a little break here. Their first off week coming up this week since the first week of January. They went 2 straight months. Thank the heavens. A chance to catch our breath. And we end things on a nice note, I thought, here at UFC 222. Again, thank you so much for watching. For our entire crew, I'm Ariel, that's Shaun. Good night from Las Vegas.